Hi, it's Kia. I invite you to read with me. Today, I will be reading from the New York Times, an article that I have looked at and I've been wanting to read lately. Give me 1 second and I'm going to find it. All right. The name of it is, it's a guest essay. It's an opinion written by Suzanne Garfinkel-crowell. Can you see me? I am a psychiatrist. I'm hearing something new from young women. And this was written on August 18th, 26. Several years ago, I started noticing something new when teenage girls or young women came to my office for their first psychiatric session. Patients used to dread being told that they were something, as they saw it, wrong with them. Now, these young women are announcing their diagnoses: attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, anxiety, depression, almost before telling me their names. They had researched their symptoms on Instagram. They'd taken TikTok quizzes about them. They had cross-indexed their conditions with those of their friends. It was everyone: gravel, voice film majors, and earnest high school athletes, class presidents, and girls who skipped school, girls who spent weekends in the Hamptons, and girls who had to work for their spending money. The patients of this new wave were talking in therapy speak, and their therapy hadn't even started. The physician part of me would instantly start thinking through an alphabet soup of treatments for the conditions these girls were reporting: DBT, CBT, and EMDR, and medications to go with each. Another part of me, the parent, the exennial, would struggle to suppress an inner eye roll. If you're a parent of an adolescent girl, you might have experienced your own version of these two reactions: either terror for your daughter's psychological well-being or alienation from all the jargon. You might even have tried to convince your daughter that everything was fine. None of those responses set us up to hear what these young girls and young women are trying to say. I've been listening to girls every day for years, and I've learned a few things that can help parents, therapists, and anyone else who struggles to communicate with young women as they describe some form of distress. I start with accepting that diagnoses words may function differently for these young women from the way they do for others. They are not necessarily claims to cold scientific truths yoked to specific evidence-based treatments. Instead, research increasingly reveals these words are often a coping mechanism, an effort to find some accepted narrative to which to situate one's very personal pain. Why we should try to hear them that way. We should take the therapy speak, to borrow an expression, seriously, but not literally. One girl told me she had assigned herself a diagnosis of depression, which she later acknowledged that she thought would make me care about her. Another girl was stuck on an ADHD diagnosis, mostly because it made her feel less alone by connecting her to a vocal and vibrant online community. Several young women insisted they fit the clinical definition for anxiety because it was less scary to blame an inherent flaw in their brains than to explore the causes of their very real discomfort, which turned out to be a mix of anger toward their loved ones and guilt for having those feelings. Another girl said she used her various self-diagnoses as a container for whatever felt like too much about her, allowing her to fulfill what she thought was the teenage female's highest calling, to be chill. In some cases, my patients' self-diagnoses were spot on. In many others, however, the psychiatric label seemed more like a compromise between uncomfortable feelings and the desire for social acceptance. Are these labels a source of strength or a straitjacket? Are they helping young women find help and acceptance, or standing in the way? The answer isn't so simple. Adolescent girls and young women aren't the only ones reaching for therapy speak, of course. According to some measures, 50% of Gen Zers have labeled themselves with mental health conditions, and illness identities have taken hold of young people, both online and off. But girls are by far the primary drivers of this trend. They are the main group looking up health information online, talking about their feelings and relationships, and seeking labels for what's wrong. They are also the demographic with the worst mental health profile. I think the association with young women, a group so often dismissed as frivolous, is a big part of why therapy speak is regarded as a sign of weakness and self-indulgence. For the therapist, we think about psychiatric diagnoses a lot less than you might imagine. That's partly because categories in our field tend to be more flexible than those in other areas of medicine. Classifications often evolve and change over time, especially for young people, and most of all for young women. Besides, no two people experience these conditions in exactly the same way. So we always have to try to understand the person first. Therapy speak, leading with diagnoses language, applying labels instead of describing feelings, can make that hard. It can leave friends and loved ones feeling that they have no ability to help, as though they've got to back off and let the professionals do their thing. And it can short circuit a young person's already difficult progress of self-discovery. To be clear, I'd still rather live in a world where everyone talks about trauma too much than one where you'd get shoved in a locker for being different. Ideally, we should create an environment in which girls can stop blaming their own brains for every problem, and where they don't feel they have to be sick to be heard. Until they have access to a more nuanced lexicon of human troubles, however, we need to listen differently. Small acts of translation can help. Someone who says she has ADHD may or may not fit the clinical definition, but she's probably telling you she feels scattered, overwhelmed, or afraid she's a mess. If someone says she has anxiety, you can be pretty sure she's nervous, uneasy, or unsure of herself. If the word depressed freaks you out, consider instead why the person using it feels hopeless, lonely, or in despair. If you're sick of hearing every classmate, roommate, or ex described as toxic, look past the cliche and consider the harm it's meant to describe. Whatever works, gently offer that less literal meaning back to her, not to challenge her words, but to understand them. Not to see if she really has a particular diagnosis, but to see what's going on beneath it. This kind of translation is a quiet process, but changes the way you show up, the energy you bring. With teenagers, that's always half the battle. Being too reactive makes it about you and your fears. Being too quick to reassure can make you seem you don't understand the seriousness of her concerns. Searching beneath the buzzwords for what she's really telling you avoids both pitfalls. Ultimately, translation is an exercise in empathy, in jumping out of the limits of your own perspective. Making that effort is a powerful way to help another person feel better. Language can illuminate certain parts of the truth while obscuring others. Perhaps that's why it is believed that Claude Monet, and that in order to see a thing, we must forget its name. Internet users might have been getting at something similar when they came up with the hashtag, "Let's normalize not calling women crazy." When it comes to therapy speak, whether it's used in my office or in your house, this kind of translation is an important first step. That was a nice read. Thank you for reading with me.